sector of downtown Chicago provide the backdrop for a brand new racetrack on the Champ Car scene. Welcome to Chicago. They call it the Windy City, but the wind is going to come from 26 200-mile-per-hour Champ Cars here today. Hello and welcome. It's great to have your company for the Target Grand Prix of Chicago. Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw with you. And it's a brand new facility, Jeremy, and what a tremendous atmosphere. We've just seen a stunning firework display. Yeah, during the daytime, spectacular place. Really a wonderful racetrack. Look at it there. There's a good aerial view there. You can see the front and the back straight. There is the start-finish line in the middle of that huge grandstand. See, 62,000 people. A tight turns 1 and 2. A long back straight. And the cars are reaching almost 200 miles on the straight and then braking heavily down 1 gear, some of them going down 2 gears for these very tight corners. Max Papis starts from pole position here today, his first pole in his 3rd full season of Champ Car racing. Max celebrated his achievement yesterday afternoon, and for Team Rahal and for Max Papis himself, a chance to really celebrate and be delighted. An Italian on pole on an oval, something to pay back a little bit for the disappointment of losing at Michigan just a few weeks ago. Meanwhile, Mark Blundell starts in the front row here today. His last win came at another brand new oval, the California Speedway at Fontana back in 1997. So that's how the front row looks then. Max Papis and Mark Blundell together. On the 2nd row, Jimmy Vasser, always fast on the ovals, and series leader Dario Franchitti. On row 3 of the grid, Elio Castroneves and Patrick Carponche. Very good return in the last race due to injury at Mid-Ohio. Row 4 of the grid, Brian Herter and Roberto Moreno, and those two just 1/10 of a second off the pole. 5th row is Cristiano D'Amata, his best ever finish of 4th place, and there is Juan Montoya. What's he doing back on row 5? On row 6, Greg Moore, another oval specialist, and alongside him, Maurizio Guterman, who hasn't finished the last few races. Row 7 of the grid, Scott Pruitt and PJ Jones sitting in for the injured Adrian Fernandez. And on row 8 of the grid, there is Tony Kanaan. He won the last oval track race, but struggles on the short ovals, alongside Jan Magnussen. Paul Tracy next up on row 9, the Milwaukee winner, 2 points behind the man who's alongside him, Michael Andretti. And then it's Gilles de Ferran, who lines up 19th, struggling with the Goodyear tyre this weekend, with Michel Jourdain alongside. Row 11, Robbie Gordon. He's driven both a Swift and a Reynard. He's now in an Eagle chassis this weekend, and Raoul Bozell in Dan Gurney's Eagle. Richie Hearn and Alan Jr. on row 12. Unser crashed on practice yesterday. And the final row of the grid sees Shigeaki Hattori making his 7th start of the season, and alongside him in the Peyton Coyne car is Dennis Vitola. There are the cars out on track now. Remind you of the point standings. Dario Franchitti has just a 1-point advantage over Juan Montoya. Michael Andretti has only 2 points over Paul Tracy for 3rd. Christian Fittipaldi, of course, he will not be racing again this weekend, still out due to injury, and a chance therefore for Greg Moore to make some ground on the championship chase. We have some onboard cameras. Richie Hearn, Robbie Gordon in the Eagle chassis this weekend. Remember, in the past, it's only been All-American racers who run that car. Michael Andretti in his normal Swift, but look, he starts down in 18th position. So watch out for him today. Jan Magnussen also has an onboard camera. Remember, he drives the Vistion car that was driven by PJ Jones. And on board also this week with Juan Montoya. He starts down in 10th, had a lot of understeer in qualifying yesterday, but let me tell you something, he was fastest in the warm-up this morning. His teammate, watch out for him today, loves the ovals, and he starts in 3rd position on today's grid. 26 cars all lined up for the start of this new race at the Chicago Motor Speedway. We're in the Cicero suburb of Chicago itself. We've got railway lines and roads on either side of the track, but we're focused right now on this new 1 mile oval. Max Papis and Mark Blundell on the front row together as they accelerate out of turn, and it's a yellow. Yeah. Papis went a little bit too quickly.
Yeah, he did. The pace was very slow through turns 3 and 4 there, and Max Papis trying to steal a march on the field. He jumped on the throttle there, had a huge jump coming off the corner, and that's not the way it works on these oval tracks. Jim Swintel, the official starter of kart, he sat down with those front row qualifiers yesterday afternoon, and that's exactly what I told them not to do.
Just analyse the race. It is a 225 lap event. Maximum speed's about 200 miles an hour at the end of the straights, but there's a lot of braking into the turns, and so they're down to 125 in the turns themselves. Fuel range between 65 and 70, perhaps even 75 laps around this track. Now then, let's see if we can get a green this time.
Yeah, what the starter wants is for Max Papis to bring these cars up to speed at a steady acceleration rather than just jumping on the throttle. And Mark Blundell is hanging back there. That's, well, I think the problem there was Mark Blundell. For some reason, he did not want to stay with Max Papis. And I'm not so sure. That's 2 yellow flag starts now. The starter's not going to like to do 3. And that was Mark Blundell's problem. The first time was Max Papis jumping too soon, and that one was because Mark Blundell held back. They both have to maintain position. They've been told about this before in the drivers' meeting yesterday afternoon, and I don't think the starter is going to tolerate another penalty there. I think he might well be issuing some penalties unless they get this start clean and proper next time around.
All right, well, the drivers certainly were keen that they built the speed up out of turn 4 rather than going into turn 3 because of the tight nature of these corners. They didn't want to be hard on it going into turn 3, the area they're at now. So they all agreed yesterday that they wouldn't get on it until they came out of turn 4, which is just the area they're going through now. Let's hope that they can keep it all together this time, side by side as they come out of turn 4. Max Papis gets the brake again, and it's yellow. It's still yellow. Blundell still slow away off turn 4.
Well, it's fairly ridiculous, actually, I have to say. And you can see there that Frank Kitty is pulling up alongside Mark Blundell as if to say, what the heck are you doing? Stay with him. You know you're supposed to accelerate off that turn. And if he doesn't do it this time around, I think they may well penalise Mark Blundell. That time it looked like a pretty good start. The guys behind Max Papis stayed right with him under acceleration, and Blundell again lagged.
Well, apparently race control is putting a message to Blundell to say, keep up with Papis, you're dropping back too much. Let's see what happens this time. Papis and Blundell lead the field around. Can they get a clean start this time? They've tried 3 times already, and now we've got to try again as they come off turn 4. Blundell still slow away, but they get the green, and Papis leads as they head down to turn 1 for the first racing lap here, and Vassar trying to get inside Blundell. Frank Kitty trying to go around the outside of Vassar. Frank Kitty on the outside, the battle for 3rd place as they go up the back stretch, and Frank Kitty just noses ahead as they head up towards turn number 3. Vassar's back to 4th, then it's Castro Neves. Montoya's made a pretty good getaway as well, and he's got past Greg Moore. You're on board with one Montoya sliding the car around on cold tyres, and we know how effective he can be on those cold tyres.
And some side-by-side racing down to the pack. There is Brian Herter there, just squeaking ahead of Roberto Moreno, and there is Greg Moore or Patrick Carponche back on the outside of PJ Jones, very, very tight down the back straight, very, very close as they shuffle themselves around midway through the pack.
Mark Blundell has dropped back a little bit in second. Look at the battle that's going on there between Herter, D'Amata, and there is Frank Kitty coming up past Blundell. Frank Kitty gets straight past Mark Blundell down into turn 1. That looked like a very good, clean manoeuvre, and now he goes chasing after Max Papis.
Absolutely was a great manoeuvre there by Frank Kitty. Got a great run off turn 4 and got the move done into turn 1. Vassar tried to do the same into 3. Look at him there. It has almost come to a stop, and he gets a run even then off Mark Blundell. Mark Blundell's car is clearly not handling well at this stage in the race. I think the car is loose in mid-corner. He can't get on the throttle because when he does so, the back end steps round him. He's understeering there. He can't get it into the corner either. Can't get it in, can't get it off. Big problem for Mark Blundell.
He's all over the place, and he's being passed by one Montoya now. Remember, they're on a full tank of fuel, and the car balance can change appreciably from what they had in qualifying. Blundell's car obviously worked brilliantly on a light fuel load in qualifying, but he is really struggling. But watch out in the background for Michael Andretti. Michael started a long way down. He's already up into 12th position. He started down in 18th place, so good opening few laps, and there we are on board with Michael Andretti.
Great stuff there, Michael Andretti. Yeah, he's going to give us some spectacular shots. You know, he was saying after qualifying, this track really didn't suit his style in terms of an ultimately quick lap. That's because he's a very aggressive driver. He likes to get it down into the apex, muscle it through the middle of the corner, and then come off the corner as best he can. Well, to be quick round here in qualifying for one ultimate lap, you've got to be smooth. You've got to carry the throttle through the corner. And Mikey said, you know, that's not my style. But in a race, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think my aggressiveness is going to work in my favour. I think I'm going to be able to make some passes. I think I'm going to move up the field, and he's doing that already.
He is making good progress. Remember, part of the reason that his driving style needs to be different this year on these kind of tracks is the reduced downforce they have. They're running what are called the speedway wings. They have to run this low downforce setup nowadays on the short 1 mile ovals. There is race leader Max Papis, and Team Rahal seem to have come up with a wonderful setup for this car with these type of wings. He has a lead of just under a second from Dario Franchitti, Jimmy Vasser, Castroneves, and there in 5th place, the menacing Montoya. I say menacing because he's already made up several places, starting down in 10th position, and he's already up into 5th place. On board with him for a moment. Let's just watch this. Down a gear into turn number 3. Now back on the power. Watch the gear change. Up 2 gears, in fact, down this front stretch, down 2 gears again into turn number 1. They can run over that white line, that's okay, as long as they don't get the whole car over that white line. They will not be penalised, but if they go right down over the white line with the whole car, then they will have a drive-through penalty. There is the battle between Jimmy Vasser and Helio Castroneves. That's the battle for 3rd position. We look back from the onboard camera, looking right at the Lola of Helio Castroneves, who ran so well on the ovals earlier this year. He had a pole position at Milwaukee, finished 2nd for Michael Andretti at Gateway, and Castroneves has been in fine form here this weekend. The Lola chassis provides just a little bit more downforce in this sort of trim than the Reynard perhaps, and they've been in great shape. Into the pits has come Cristiano D'Amata. In fact, he's just on his way back out again because he punctured a left front tyre. Take a look at this. You saw him locking up, and he's basically worn a hole through that front tyre, and obviously he's had to come into the pits and change that, and that means that Cristiano is well out of the running here.
In the very early stages of this race, and he will lose at least, we've already lost 1 lap, and probably be a couple of laps down by the time he's back up to speed. So great shame for Cristiano D'Amata. He's done a super job in qualifying. He's been fast all weekend, actually, in that MCI WorldCom car, the Toyota powered car, and there they go for some of those cars, and that is the 2 target Jim Ganassi cars now sandwiching Helio Castroneves, and there is Juan Montoya. He really is trying to get past Castroneves. Look at him, 2 wheels well below that white line.
Yes, but as I say, he's allowed to do that, although the drivers reckon there wasn't much, if anything, it's worse to go below the line. There's no grip on the painted surface there. Vasser running in 3rd place then, and now we ride on board with Montoya, who certainly seems to have a car he's happier with here today than he was in qualifying, where he said he just could not get on the throttle at this point in the corners because the car wanted to wash out. Now you hear him pick up the throttle very smoothly, and he's towing up behind the Lola of Helio Castroneves. Both of them are caught up a little bit behind Richie Hearn. Richie Hearn about to be lapped already in the Budweiser car. He had some problems in qualifying when his engine blew on his best lap. Still managed to qualify ahead of 1 or 2 other cars, and at the moment he stays ahead of Jimmy Vasser in terms of on track, but he is about to be lapped by these 3 cars.
Yeah, that is a shame, because he had a fantastic run going in qualifying, and he actually lost 1 second. The engine blew as he came out of turn 4 on that qualifying lap, and he lost precisely 1 second between turns 4 and the start-finish line, and that 1 second would have put him in the top 10. So he had a fast car yesterday, but certainly in the early stages of the race, he is struggling with that Budweiser the Reynard chassis with the Toyota engine.
Yes, and he's allowed them through now, so Vasser's passed, so is Castroneves, and so is Juan Montoya. Max Papis still our race leader, 2.9 seconds ahead of Dario Franchitti, as we go back on board now with Michael Andretti. Now, he's catching up to PJ Jones, who's running in 10th. PJ Jones in Adrian Fernandez's car. Remember, it's all been very confusing over the last few races, people jumping around from car to car, but there it is, the car we normally see driven by Fernandez, the Ducati-sponsored green and red machine, but now being driven by PJ Jones, while Fernandez recovers from a broken wrist. And Michael Andretti, that little bit closer, and he is the next one on Michael's list to be passed. Meanwhile, behind them, you can see Greg Moore and Paul Tracy. And remember, Tracy started this race on the same row as Michael Andretti. Tracy started on that 9th row, so he's made up a bit of ground as well. It's not going to be easy to find a way past fellow Canadian Greg Moore. Meanwhile, we've got tremendous atmosphere here, almost full, the 67,000 seat grandstand, this brand new grandstand that climbs to 150 foot in the air, overlooking this racetrack. And a tremendous race to watch for the moment as you see Max Papis getting into the back market.
Yeah, and he's been stuck behind these two. That was Alonso Jr. just made a move on Robbie Gordon, and now Max Papis is trying to do the same thing. He does so. He gets past Robbie Gordon. Robbie Gordon is running in 22nd place, and Alonso Jr. has managed to get past him, so stays on the lead lap. But he is the next man in the sights of the race leader, Max Papis. That is Max Papis flying down the back straight there into turn 3, and Alonso Jr. now is turning a pretty good pace. Funny, he always seems to do that when he's about to be lapped, doesn't he, Ben?
Well, of course, it means a lot to stay on the lead lap on an oval race. If you stay on the lead lap, you've always got a chance of getting in the points, and that's what little Al is trying to do. But Papis has got closer to the back of Unser's car again, and Unser, well, he'll get out of the way if Papis gets right alongside, but apart from that, he is going to try and stay on the lead lap. You can bet that one, because the way these races go on the ovals, you always have an opportunity. Now, here's a little battle going on. Jan Magnussen in the silver and black car up against Scott Pruitt. That's the battle for 16th position. Remember, Magnussen is having his first race on an oval. Meanwhile, further ahead, Montoya is still tucked in behind Helio Castroneves, and this is the battle for 4th position. These two have had various tussles this year. Do you remember the Nazareth race earlier this season, where Castroneves led much of that? Montoya got past him on a couple of occasions, particularly in the pits. Castroneves would get ahead again. Montoya got in front. In the end, unfortunately, Castroneves crashed out, and it was Montoya who came through to win the race at Nazareth. Backed off, he lost a bit of time there, actually. He's going a little bit slowly. I wonder if he had a slight problem there. Montoya definitely dropped away several car lengths.
Yes, he did, didn't he? And we'll have to wait and see if he can pick up that speed. Maybe the car just jumped out a little bit on him through the turn. Certainly coming through 3 and 4 there. More conservative than he has been for the last few laps. We'll keep an eye on that. Certainly tyre wear has not been a problem thus far this weekend. It's obviously a brand new racetrack. No testing at all before we came here. They had a day on Thursday which was added to the schedule just because it was a new racetrack. But that was the first time anybody had been on the track. And it's a very, very smooth surface, not very abrasive at all. And that certainly is good for the tyre manufacturers. In fact, they're all saying here, both Goodyear and Firestone, they've been rather more conservative than they really would have wanted.
Papis has got himself past Alonso Jr., so Michel Jourdain's the next one to get through, and now Dario Franchitti will have the same task of trying to get past Alonso Jr. Franchitti felt he lost a lot of time trying to get past back markers in the last race at Mid-Ohio, felt that some of them weren't terribly cooperative, and it is vital that these leaders get through the slower cars as quickly as possible. There's Franchitti getting past Robbie Gordon, who gives him space, and Robbie in the Eagle chassis, remember, this weekend, looks great in the Menard colour scheme, still has the Eagle emblem on the front of the car, and in fact the two Eagles running fairly close together. There goes Jimmy Vasser past Gordon as well, and look, this has given Montoya a chance. You're right on board with Montoya, right behind Helio Castroneves. Now this is an ideal opportunity, bit of traffic around, and Montoya might be able to take advantage of that as they go down into turn 1. No, not quite close enough, because Castroneves got past Robbie Gordon there. So now Montoya has to do the same, and there you see it from on board Robbie Gordon as Montoya gets past him.
Yeah, and a good on board here again from Robbie Gordon. They're coming out of turn 3. Look at that fantastic grandstand there, all hospitality suites along the top edge of the grandstand. The place is absolutely packed, 62,000 fans. It really is a tremendous sight. Beautiful afternoon in Chicago. It's fairly warm, it's pretty humid. It's going to be hard work for these drivers, but I think we're already seeing some pretty exciting racing, and lots more to go. Just 190 laps to go. We've only got just 35 laps in the book, so a long way to go.
Yes, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Montoya's beginning to close up behind Castroneves again. There was a bit of mess on the camera screen, which was interesting, on Montoya's onboard camera. It makes you wonder if somebody isn't dropping a little bit of fluid or something, and perhaps the reason that he dropped back from Castroneves. Now looking at getting past Castroneves. Apparently he is reporting the track is a little bit greasy as well, so perhaps that's just the new surface of the track. Perhaps there is a little bit of fluid being spilt in these early stages. Behind them, Blundell is still running in 6th, and it seems as though his car's going a bit better now that they're getting into a stint. He struggled at the start of the race, dropped a lot of places, but now seems to be running more consistently in that 6th place, and in fact, if anything, has closed up to the battle here between Castroneves and Montoya.
Yeah, there are some slower cars in amongst that group, and the race leader, Max Papis, is making absolutely no impression, really, on Michel Jourdain Jr., and ahead of Jourdain is Tony Kanaan. Ahead of Tony Kanaan, the laps car, because of the early puncture of Cristiano D'Amato, and those cars are pretty much running nose to tail at this stage, and Papis not able to make a move on Jourdain. Here we are coming down the back straight. That is the battle for 4th and 5th positions. Helio Castroneves holding off Juan Montoya.
Yeah, and behind that you could see a quick glimpse of Patrick Carpentier closing up to Marc Blundell. Just a quick note, Carpentier is back this weekend. He suffered a compressed vertebra in Detroit after the accident. Good to see him back here. Max Papis is race leader. On board with Michael Andretti, and look at the progress that he has made in this race. He started in 18th. He has made up 11 positions, and he's now up into 7th place, and he's right behind Patrick Carpentier, just going past Raoul Boesel. Raoul Boesel, you say he's not doing champ cars. Well, he is today because he's taken over from Walter Salles at All-American Races. So he's driving for Dan Gurney this weekend, Raoul Boesel, and doing a reasonable job, but nothing special at the moment. He's down in 21st place. But we still ride with Michael Andretti, who is doing a pretty special job. He's overtaking cars one by one, and he's up into 7th place now.
Yeah, really charging. He is narrowing the gap to the race leaders. He is only 4 seconds behind the race leader, Max Papis, and Max Papis has, what, about a second and a half now over Dario Franchitti, Jimmy Vasser on his tail, and then Helio Castroneves and Montoya, and there now is the battle for 6th position, Carpentier and Andretti. And look at Andretti coming there, coming through the corner really pretty smoothly there. Carpentier, though, also running a smooth line, but look at that. The forward horsepower really tells as he gets onto the straight. It seemed to me they were pretty evenly matched coming off the corner, and then really got into the maximum horsepower range. The Ford engine really made some strides on the Mercedes-Benz, and again now into the back straight, the end of turn 3 there. Can't make a move this time around, but Michael Andretti, he is fast.
He is fast, and as you say, Jeremy, the Ford engine is in great shape. Here we go. What a good opportunity to get past this time, and he's gone through, down on the brakes into turn number 1. Andretti takes another place. That puts him in 6th position now, and he's doing a tremendous job of just picking them off one by one, and 6th place now, starting down in 18th position. How about that for making progress in the early laps? Meanwhile, look, Montoya has got past Castroneves, so there's a change for position. Montoya now in 4th position, right behind his teammate Jimmy Vasser. 2 Target Chip Ganassi cars running together, and look how close Montoya gets to the back of Vasser's car. We watch it from on board Jimmy Vasser's machine, and these two absolutely tied together as they head up the backstretch.
Great stuff here. Great on-board cameras there. Look at that. He gets so close, coming through the apex of the corner there. Coming off the turn, though. Jimmy Vasser gets the power on smoothly and pulls away just a little bit on the straight. These cars, of course, very closely matched. But there, behind them, Helio Castroneves really under pressure now from Michael Andretti. Here we are on board with Michael Andretti.
Michael Andretti, definitely the fastest man on the track at this point. He is closing up behind Helio Castroneves. Remember, it was the other way round earlier this year at Gateway when Michael Andretti led in the last few stages and Castroneves could not find a way past him. And here now, Castroneves has to watch his mirrors as Michael is bearing down on him. I thought he might try into turn 1, but Michael knows he's got a car advantage. He does not need to take huge risks at this point. And there, the battle between Montoya and Vasser, and Montoya has got ahead of Vasser. So Montoya has now moved up into 3rd place, and Andretti Andretti on the move as well. Vassar's in trouble. Vassar, what's going on? He's slowed down quite a lot there. And Andretti going past Castro Neves as well. So Michael has suddenly arrived in 4th position now. How did he do that? Well, I think Jimmy Vassar made a little mistake. So, oh, look at that correction from Michael. And you can see he is trying very hard. He's putting a lap here on Tony Kanaan.
Yeah, Tony Kanaan is running now in 19th position there. He goes a lap down to Michael Andretti, the fastest man on the track. Absolutely superb drive from Michael Andretti. He said yesterday he wasn't worried about qualifying way back in the grid there in 18th position there. But he said he could move forward, and he is good to his word. Here he is in 4th place and charging towards the front.
That Ford horsepower at its peak here and this Chicago track, it just seems to suit it. Max Papis said after Friday, he said this track's a little bit like having 2 drag strips, and that really suits us with the Ford engines. And of course Max took pole position here. It's only the 3rd pole position of the year for a Ford engine, but Ford in tremendous shape with both Papis and Michael Andretti. Advantage of 1.3 seconds over Dario Franchitti. Again, they're in traffic. He's gone past Alonso Jr. again. So it's Papis out front, Franchitti in 2nd. And there he is. And now Montoya right behind Dario Franchitti. The 2 championship contenders. 1 point separate these 2 in the series. And Franchitti has got Juan Montoya hunting him down. Montoya was not so good in qualifying yesterday. He only set the 10th fastest time. Frank Williams was here watching. A rare visit from the Formula One team boss, and in fact he left yesterday afternoon. Montoya didn't qualify too well, but he certainly is putting in a good performance here this afternoon as he closes up to Dario Franchitti, having started in 10th, now battling for 2nd.
And it's interesting how drivers' fortunes seem to ebb and flow in this race. You seem to be able to make some progress for a while, and then for some reason the car seems to lose its balance a little bit. We saw it with Mark Blundell. He's split back. He's now running pretty consistently there in 13th position. Jimmy Vassar was running well. He struggled a little bit for a few laps, fell back to 6th, and now he's maintaining that position ahead of Patrick Carpentier. Brian Herders, he's the latest guy in trouble. He was running along pretty happily in 8th, and now lost a place last time around, and he's struggling now to stay ahead of Jan Magnussen there.
Montoya goes past Franchitti, makes it look very easy, and in fact Franchitti didn't really bother at this stage in the race to battle too hard. It's only 58 laps now completed, 167 still to go, and Franchitti has to accept that Montoya is a little more hooked up at the moment, and so is Michael Andretti, and Michael now looking to go past Franchitti any moment. Max Papis is our race leader though, remember, on his own up front, just over a 2nd ahead of Montoya. Question is, how quickly can Montoya close the gap between himself and Max Papis?
I don't think it'll take him long. There is the car there of Alonso Jr., who is running very, very well now. He's staying with Max Papis. He really is into the groove. Shame he wasn't in the groove earlier on, but he's certainly running well now. It's good to see. And there is PJ Jones. And look how he has moved up, particularly in the last few laps there, really making some ground. He's just got past Paul Tracy and is running now in 8th position.
Yes, Tracy has done a good job though as well, because he's worked his way up from a long way down on the grid. Michael Andretti, we ride on board with Michael as Max Papis leads. Montoya 2nd, Andretti now in 3rd place past Franchitti, and so it looks as though it's Montoya versus Andretti at the moment, although it is, of course, Max Papis who still has the advantage, but they are closing up to him.
Yes, they are. They're lapping a couple of tenths a lap quicker than Max Papis, and Max Papis pretty much has a clean track ahead of him. He has the luxury of 1 car, that is Alonso Jr. between himself and the 2nd place car. But there again, a move there of Michael Andretti getting past Dario Franchitti and just braking later into the corner. He can get that car, really hustle it into the turns, and a tremendous move by Michael Andretti.
So Michael in that 3rd position. Papis is our race leader. 61 laps have been completed, but this is hotting up into a tremendous encounter up front. But for the moment, it has just cooled down a moment because we have a full course caution. Greg Moore coasted to a halt at the exit of the pit lane, and almost a few seconds later, so did Alonso Jr. But in the meantime, there have been changes of position because both Montoya and Andretti found a way past Max Papis. They caught him so quickly. They caught him length over length each lap, and suddenly they were passed. And now we have Montoya leading, Andretti 2nd, and they are heading for the pits any moment. This was the pass of Montoya on Papis, made it all look very simple, very straightforward, down the inside into turn 1. Now, the reason it's being yellowed off is they're not happy about Montoya on these restarts. Montoya has a knack of going slowly and then building up the speed at the last minute. This time, he's gone fast all the way around, and that's helped him just as much. Look at the battle for second as Franchitti gets back past Andretti, and Franchitti on the new tyres, cold tyres, determined not to be fallen back behind Andretti. And now Tracy trying to get past Michael as well as they head up the back stretch into turn number 3, but he couldn't quite make it past.
Fantastic move there by Dario Franchitti, really forcing the issue down the inside there, and that was a great move by Dario Franchitti.
So now it's Montoya who's out in front with half a second advantage. It's the top 2 in the championship doing battle here at the Chicago Motor Speedway, and the 2 of them pulling away a little bit from Michael Andretti, who perhaps is just playing it cautiously at the start of this second stint. They're on new tyres, they have a full tank of fuel on board. That will affect how the car handles, but as we saw in the first stint, Michael Andretti's car was superb. Once it had got a few laps under its belt, once a little bit of the fuel had been burnt off, and I can expect to see the same again as we go through this second stint. On board with Michael, let's just enjoy the view here a moment. Beautiful weather conditions. As you said earlier, Jeremy, it's going to be pretty hot down there in the cockpits. A lot of concentration required on an oval. It always looks easy to drive because they're only going through 2 identical corners. That in some ways makes it even harder. You have to be so precise and so perfect with the timing of the braking and acceleration, and always you've got someone else to worry about in your mirrors.
That's exactly right. There is absolutely no chance to relax on these tracks whatsoever. It is intense concentration required. A lot of physical energy too is burned up in these races. A lot of G-forces through the corners, even through these relatively slow corners. They're going through the turns now around about 120 miles an hour here, and in race trim probably about 190, 195 on the front straight. So heavy braking for turn 1 and for turn 3.
Yes, and it's something the drivers were surprised at, the level of braking required here. They had to fit bigger brake ducts to make sure there's a sufficient cooling on the brakes, and in fact the drivers' necks are getting a lot of strain just on the braking forces. Mark Blundell not at full fitness, remember, yet from his accident earlier in the year. Look at this little battle going on as Jan Magnussen trying to get past teammate PJ Jones.
And I think there was contact there between Magnussen trying to make a move on his teammate PJ Jones. The 2 Patrick Racing cars have both moved up very, very well in the early stages of this race, and Magnussen there trying to make a move on PJ Jones. I think he got his wheel right underneath the left rear of PJ and seemed to nudge him wide there, and that was a good save, I think, by both drivers at that point in the action. And Brian Herter there gets the opportunity to go past Jan Magnussen. Let's have a look at it perhaps on a replay. Look at him, Magnussen diving down to the inside here, and PJ Jones, he's right below the white line there. Actually might get penalised for that. He had both the right side wheels seem to be on that white line. That is a no-no according to the chief steward, Wally Dallenbach. At least that's what he told him in the drivers' meeting yesterday. So we'll see whether there's a penalty there for Jan Magnussen. But a little bit desperate, I think, at this stage in the race, and he needs to just calm himself down a bit. He's obviously got a very, very good car, and he needs to make sure he has a good car at the end of the race and not at the beginning of the race.
Up front, Montoya is pulling away just a fraction from Franchitti, but it's certainly not to a huge extent. Meanwhile, Andretti is in 3rd place, and he's also pulled away just a little bit from Paul Tracy. Now, Michael is reporting a little bit of vibration on the new tyres. Has that got something to do with the new tyres, or could it be something to do with that little bit of contact that they had in the pit lane? Meanwhile, Montoya's reporting a problem as well. He's saying he's got a problem with 4th gear, and that, as we saw at Road America, could be curtains for Montoya if the gearbox continues to go wrong. It is unusual on the ovals to have corners that you need to change down for, and in fact it's something the drivers are not very happy about because it makes the car unstable. It unsettles the car into the turns. Driving an oval is all about trying to be as smooth as possible. We've got a yellow. Oh, and we've got an accident. Turn number 1.
It's Jan Magnussen, I think, is one of the cars. I'm not quite sure that is
yes.
Jan Magnussen, the Vistion car that he is up against the wall. Can't quite see who the other one is.
We gather that...
It's not PJ Jones, I can't tell you that.
No, that's right. It sounds as though it's Moreno. Oh, what a shame. Very hard to see down there with the sunlight glinting off the cars to actually pick out which particular car it is, but it is Roberto Moreno, sadly, and there the accident damage to Jan Magnussen's car. Now then,
and they clearly made some contact there on the entrance to the corner, and Magnussen spins up to the outside. Oh, a great save there, great avoidance move. I didn't quite see who that was. Might have been Richie Hurd, I'm not quite sure. But Moreno there spun and stalled on the inside of the track.
So that's disappointing. It means the track is under caution again as Montoya leads Franchitti. This is a replay of what happened. Jan Magnussen crashing heavily into the outside wall at turns 1 and 2. Now, here's the onboard. Let's see what happened here. Oh, he got hit from behind by Roberto. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's surprising, I think, from Roberto Moreno. He was running behind Magnussen, obviously, up until that impact there. And Magnussen, of course, had lost a place or two because of that earlier minor collision, effectively, with P.J. Jones going into that same point on the track. And Magnussen there certainly didn't seem to be under pressure going into the corner. And you could see it quite clearly. A bump from behind sends him spinning and a heavy impact in the wall. Welcome to oval track racing. I was actually talking with Jan on Friday, and he was sort of joking with me, saying, you know, there's only two types of oval track driver, those who have hit the wall and those who are about to hit the wall, and he was pretty proud of himself. And up to that stage, he was in the former club. Well, now he's joined the latter club as well.
Yes, well and truly christened on the ovals. Good to see he's out of the car, and he is okay, if a little winded and shaken. Roberto Moreno is back in the event meanwhile, so his car seems undamaged. Juan Montoya, our second place man in the championship. Obviously, he's top rookie in this year's series. As we said, he matched the number of wins.
One finger, have they? What's the holdup?
In 1 year. Just listening to the radio.
10-4.
Chip Ganassi there talking to Juan Montoya, asking why they haven't got things cleared up yet.
A couple of laps, I'd say. They're pretty close. 10-4. Hey, Juan, they're just wanting you to build up your speed a little sooner, okay?
And there's the news from the kart race directors. They want Montoya to pick up the pace a bit. He has been accused of being a little slow on the restarts and then gunning it, but, well, he did it the right way last time. One finger as they go past. That means next time by they will be getting the green flag, and Montoya will have to judge the pace again. The safety cars all making their way in after the accident for Jan Magnussen. He'll have been taken off to the medical centre, but he was basically okay, I think, just somewhat winded and shaken. The restart will take place on lap number 98. We're still a little way short of half distance here. Juan Montoya, Dario Franchitti, Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy, the top four, and they head through now. Turn 3, and Montoya really does pick up the pace much more quickly this time, and I think they'll definitely give it green as they come off the turn. And Tracy on the attack of Michael Andretti as they cross the line, side by side between Tracy and Andretti. And has Tracy managed to get past? Yes, he has. Paul Tracy up into third, and look at the two leaders as well.
Yeah, Franchitti really did put Montoya under pressure. Look at those side by side now. Michael Andretti trying to get back past Paul Tracy, and Dario Franchitti on the inside of Montoya.
Frankitti's down on the yellow, and then Tracy and Andretti have hit each other. Tracy and Andretti have hit each other. Meanwhile, Frankitti's ahead. Franchitti got past Montoya, so as the yellow comes out, Franchitti is leading. But Tracy...
Oh, I knocked the wind out of me. Well, that guy's an asshole.
And then we hear Michael's comment as he tried to get past Paul Tracy. He said he had the wind knocked out of him, but he's okay. He's talking on the radio. We've yet to hear anything from Paul Tracy, but it's the end of the day for two of the veterans of this series, winners on the 1 mile ovals. They ought to be able to race together. Andretti was down on the inside and Tracy cut down in. They should have been able to get through there side by side, but it did not work out.
No, and you know, on the previous corner there, Paul Tracy had taken a clean move past Michael Andretti, and there is the move. You see them, well, the leaders are changing places there as Franchitti gets past Juan Montoya, and behind them they've already made contact. Here we are on board with Michael Andretti. Here we are coming off turn 2. They're side by side down the back straight, and look, Tracy has what, half a car length, if at the most, and going into the corner there, he turns down, and Michael Andretti is pinched off there, and you know, it's tough to apportion blame. I mean, they're side by side going into the corner. Paul Tracy has his nose ahead. Theoretically, he has the advantage. You know, oval racing is different to road course racing. On an oval track, you really, the general consensus is if you're going to make a pass, you've got to get right alongside and make the pass cleanly. Michael really didn't have that pass totally made. At the same time, Paul Tracy should have looked in his mirrors there. He knows Michael Andretti is not about to back off in that sort of situation, and if Tracy had given him just a half a car width of room there, they would have made it through that turn.
Yeah, I think the problem was Tracy didn't even give Michael a chance to back out of it, because he cut down so quickly that he didn't even give Michael a chance to sort of get harder on the brakes and get out of the way. If he just, you say, if he'd just given him that half a car's width more, they should have both survived that and come through to fight on another corner. Looks as though both drivers are okay. That's the important thing, but it's taken two potential winners out of this race. On board with Juan Montoya as we come to the restart, and Dario Franchitti accelerates and gets the green flag this time. Jim Swintal, the starter, is happy on this occasion, and Franchitti leads away from Montoya, Vassar. Then it's Papis and Carpentier.
Yeah, in actual fact, Carpentier was passed by Helio Castroneves going into turn one there, so a good move there by the Brazilian.
So Castroneves on a charge. Watch out, there he is in the white car, now up behind Vassar. And Dario Franchitti, stunning first lap on the restart there. He's opened up a big gap over Montoya, 1.6 seconds on that opening lap. It's the sort of thing we see Montoya do, and now Franchitti showing that he can be just as rapid on cold tyres. He's determined to stamp his authority on this race, as we have gone just over the half-distance point in this event. Let's go down to the pits.
First off, how are you? Are you okay?
Just a big knock when I hit the wall, but I'm fine now.
Well, now you're a member of the club, as Parker was saying, those who have hit the wall and those who will. You were up to 10th. What happened?
I mean, first off, I'd just like to thank the Visteon guys for getting my car ready. We changed cars in the middle of the week, or in the middle of the weekend, so they just did a great job, and the car was running so good in the race. I mean, I was able to pass people all the time, so it's a good experience today.
Guys, he went all the way to 10th in his first oval race. Not too shabby.
His teammate's doing a fine job too. Look, PJ Jones in the Fernandez car is running in 7th place, and he is now right behind Patrick Carpentier, looking for a way past. Hasn't quite found it as yet, but PJ Jones, as he did at Nazareth, in fact, earlier this year, running very quickly on the 1 mile ovals.
Certainly is, and good to see. He's had a really disappointing season, has PJ Jones, in the Visteon car that Jan Magnussen was driving. He was rested from that car a couple of races ago, and then Adrian Fernandez, who's a very good close friend of PJ, they both lived together down in Phoenix or Scottsdale, Arizona, and because Adrian got hurt, he invited PJ to step into his car, and he struggled certainly last weekend, did not have a good race at Mid-Ohio, but really is doing a fantastic job this afternoon. As you say, now we're in 7th place and looking at 6th.
Up front, Dario Franchitti's opened up a 1.9 second advantage over Montoya. Vassar lies in 3rd, with Max Papis back past Helio Castroneves. Castroneves still close behind, then Carpentier and PJ Jones. Behind PJ is Scott Pruitt, who's made up several places in the last few laps. So Scott Pruitt in the Toyota-powered car now runs 8th. Mark Blundell down in 9th. Brian Herter 10th, then Maurizio Gugelmin is in 11th place, and Tony Kanaan is in the final point scoring position, 12th spot. Let's go down to the pits. We've got a chance, I believe, to hear from Paul Tracy.
Paul, can you tell us what happened, the contact with Andretti?
Well, it was disappointing for the whole Team Cool Green team, my side. We had a great race car, and you know, Michael and I got him on the restart, and you know, he got a run back on me going into 3 and 4, and it looked to me like we were both going for the same piece of real estate, and I was you know, about a half a car length in front of him, and we made contact getting into the corner, and which sent both of us around. So it was, you know, disappointing, you know, because both of us had good cars, and you know, it was getting pretty racy pretty early on. But
you knew he was there?
I knew he was there, but I didn't think he was far enough up alongside to outbrake me. And you know, this corner is this track's such a one-line place. You've got to turn in sometime, and you know, I felt that I was clear of him, and I think he was down on the apron a little bit, and you know, we both made contact with each other.
Has the racing been better or worse than you might have expected?
I thought it was okay. I mean, my car was pretty good. I was able to pass guys. Obviously, Michael was able to pass guys, so you know, a little bit disappointed that because I felt we could have been on the podium today, but you know, we'll get him next week at Vancouver, and we hope Mikey's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We hear that Michael Andretti has got a bruised leg, but nothing worse than that, so we're hearing at the moment. Meanwhile, up front, Jeremy, the leaders have become a little closer.
They have indeed, and Montoya really stringing together some fast laps. So there goes Dario Franchitti. There goes Juan Montoya. 3 or 4 laps ago, the gap was up to 2 seconds between them, but that is now down to half of that. And Montoya is looking to get back on terms once again with Dario Franchitti. Meanwhile, on the back stretch, that is, they were looking there at Helio Castroneves, beginning to put Max Papis under pressure, and that is a battle for 4th position.
So we have tussles for position all the way through the field at the moment, but Franchitti is the one who's got most pressure on him, because Montoya definitely closing up, and they're getting into traffic as well, so that's going to make quite a difference. Franchitti is, I can see just watching out of the commentary box, coming out behind Raul Boesel in the Eagle, and Montoya's got a chance to go down the inside. Montoya into turn number 1, and the crowd's on its feet here in the grandstand, cheering and shouting as Montoya goes back past Franchitti and retakes the lead.
Superb drive there. Great job by both drivers there. Franchitti certainly didn't make it easy. He left Montoya exactly the width he needed, and Montoya got such a good run off turn 4 and makes the move into turn 1, and back out in front goes Juan Montoya.
This form of racing so fascinating in that a car might work well for a few laps there. Franchitti's going to lose a bit of time behind Raul Boesel as they go through turns 1 and 2. A car might work well in the early laps of a stint, or it might work better in the mid laps of a stint. It's so precise, the race setup on these cars, so precise. Tiny little movements of ride height or of spring weight can make a huge difference in the handling of the car, and as they go through each 60-lap stint, the car's constantly changing, and it looks at this point as though Montoya now has a car that's working slightly better. He took advantage of that and found a way past Dario Franchitti. But what a tremendous tussle between the two championship contenders here this afternoon. Looking down further at the field, 9th place is Mark Blundell, and a point here about Blundell is that he has made an announcement, or the team has made an announcement today, that Pac West has re-signed Mark Blundell for a further 2-year contract with an option for a 3rd season. So good news for the Englishman, who's been out of action for much of this year, really hasn't had an opportunity to show his ability, but Bruce McCaw, the Pac West team owner, sticking with Mark Blundell for another 2 years.
That's very good news for the Englishman and for Motorola. They're delighted with what Mark Blundell does, both in the car and out of the car. You can see how he's gone up and down a bit in the race now running in 9th position. He got past Brian Herter at the restart, and there he is in 9th place and heading down into turn 1, and ahead of him on the road is Scott Pruitt, and Scott's just about a second or so in front of him, and he'll try to whittle away that deficit and get on terms with the Reynard Toyota.
Up front, Juan Montoya is now got to find a way past Dennis Vitolo.
Yeah, Dennis Vitolo, we often take the mickey out of Dennis Vitolo. He's 42 years old. He's the oldest driver in the field and not a regular by any means. But let me tell you, he's doing a good job this weekend. He's just now gone 2 laps down. He's actually been dicing with Gilles de Ferran through most of this race. He's actually ahead of Gilles de Ferran. You can see de Ferran there just being passed by Dario Franchitti down into turn 1. And Vitolo in that situation gets right out of the way of the race leader, lets Montoya have clean passage, and a good move. He's running in 16th position.
It does look as though Goodyear got their sums a little wrong this weekend, because all the Goodyear tired cars have been struggling really this weekend to be on the pace, and Gilles de Ferran amongst them. Raul Boesel also down in a similar position. He's down in 18th place in the Eagle, of course. Alonso Jr. out of the race already. Montoya leads by 2.2 seconds now with 133 laps completed. You can see he still looks very comfortable out there, running right down onto the white line through turns 3 and 4 across the line to complete 134 laps now, and his advantage over Dario Franchitti 2.3 seconds. There will be, of course, another pit stop to come. They pitted around lap 65, so we should see them going a little further, because they had a lot of yellow laps where they use much less fuel, of course, and they will therefore be able to go for another 10-20 laps perhaps before they make their second round of pit stops, and that could be another crucial time for these two. Montoya just faster than Franchitti by under 1/10 of a second on that last lap. Behind them, Jimmy Vasser runs in 3rd place. 4th position still for Max Papis, the pole sitter. Let's just go on board with Juan Montoya for a moment. He's behind Cristiano De Mata in the Reynard Toyota. how much road Montoya's using, right down over the white line, but he's allowed to do that. Now picks up the slipstream, up to just under 195 miles an hour, and then braked down to 120 here, and back on the power as they come out and accelerate onto start-finish. Constant, no let-up, no rest at all. They do get the opportunity to rest their head perhaps a little bit on the cockpit surround, but it's a constant G-force on them at this track, constant concentration required, and for the moment Juan Montoya's doing the best job.
Certainly as they look, two wheels just on that white line there as he goes through turns 3 and 4 and across the start-finish line. That is 138 laps into the books there, and very, very consistent. That's a pretty good lap there, 24.2. That was 2 or 3 tenths quicker than his previous few laps. He'd been doing mid-24s, which is what Dario Franchitti is still doing. And the gap now between the first place car there, Juan Montoya, and Dario Franchitti in second place, 2.1 seconds.
So it stays reasonably consistent, and you can see Franchitti in the background, whereas we go on board with Jimmy Vasser now in third position.
Plus 2.5, plus 2.5.
Being told some information on the radio. We're just taking a little look at the drivers' performances over the year so far. It's interesting to note that Juan Montoya has gone extremely well on all of the tracks this year that they don't get any testing at. Places like Long Beach, for example, street tracks, really has gone well on all those kind of tracks. Here we're looking at PJ Jones running in 7th place, his best run of the season, really, apart from Nazareth this year when he finished in 2nd position. And he does seem to like the 1 mile ovals. He had a 7th place at Rio. He was 8th at Gateway, another oval track, of course. It's really been the road courses that have been his weak area in terms of results. And that's the reason that PJ perhaps replaced at Patrick Racing by Jan Magnussen, only to find himself back into the team, replacing Adrian Fernandez in turn. Up front of Montoya is the lapped car of Tony Kanaan, the McDonald's racing team. In fact, McDonald's based here in Chicago. They've opened their first ever McDonald's here in Chicago, and Tony was doing some promotional work for McDonald's right downtown earlier this week. Through the McDonald's drive-thru in downtown, they had various people doing pit stops with the car, and he's got a lot of support here this weekend as ever. Meanwhile, coming into the pits is Mark Blundell.
Yep, he is coming into the pits, and he has been struggling once again, like in the first into the race. After about 20-25 laps or so, he began to struggle. He's doing the same now. He is down into the pits, so the front row qualifier, Mark Blundell, into the pits.
Meanwhile, Juan Montoya continues on his majestic way up front. 4.2 seconds his advantage over Franchitti. There is Mark Blundell in pit lane.
And no urgency, unfortunately, around the engine cover coming off, so clearly major problems for Mark Blundell. What a disappointment. As you said, Ben, he has just re-signed with Motorola and the Pac West team, but today he was confident of a really, really good showing. Not to be for Mark Blundell.
Another sponsor with a hometown here. Motorola have their worldwide headquarters in Chicago. And Montoya reporting that he has no problems with his gearbox now. Remember, earlier in the race he was reporting a little bit of trouble with 4th gear. Apparently now reporting back to the team that everything seems to be okay and it's working perfectly. Behind Franchitti and Vasser, meanwhile, we've got this battle between Max Papis, and then there he is, Helio Castroneves. In fact, there's quite a big gap between those two. Patrick Carpentier some way further behind Castroneves in 6th place, and then it's PJ Jones, Scott Pruitt, Brian Herter. Maurizio Guterman's now up into 10th place with Blundell's retirement, looks like retirement anyway, and then Robbie Gordon and Roberto Moreno in the points. Moreno in the points in spite of being 2 laps down after that accident involving Jan Magnussen earlier. There's Scott Pruitt, quick view of him coming through the shot. He is the top Toyota-powered car in this race at the moment. That's the car at the bottom of your picture, just ahead of Brian Herter. And Herter, who's had a tough season, difficult year. Things haven't come together for him, but he's right in the middle of this little gaggle. Raul Boesel there, he's another lap down from those cars.
Yeah, there's 3 cars at the tail end of that little group there. That is Pruitt on the left of the screen, Brian Herter in the middle, and bringing up the back there is Mauricio Guzman, and that is the battle for 9th, 10th and 11th places, and they are the last cars on the lead lap.
But look at this, now there's a battle for 2nd between Dario Franchitti and Jimmy Vasser. And in fact, you could hear on the radio Dario being warned, watch out, you got Jimmy on your tail. and he is right on his tail, and it looks as though the Ganassi cars are working. Look at this, he's got a great run as they come up onto the backstretch. Vassar really with a chance to slingshot past Franchitti down into turn number 3. Ooh, that was close between them, but they just survived it.
Yeah, good move by Jimmy Vassar. He did have a great run, but he realised he was not alongside by the time you have to turn into the corner. That was what Paul Tracy was talking about a little earlier on. He had to turn in at that stage when Mikey was already there, and he was hoping that Jimmy Vassar was going to do he was hoping that Michael Andretti would do what Jimmy Vassar did in that instance, and that was a smart move by Jimmy Vassar. He's got a faster car, but he's just got to be patient, and he will drop back on that situation, get a better run, and pass him more cleanly, he hopes, within a few laps.
But what it has allowed is Max Papis to close up behind Vassar. So there you see the Miller Lite car, the blue and white car. That is Papis, our early race leader in pole position, and he's now finding himself tucked in behind Jimmy Vassar. Both of them trying to get past the lapped car of Shigeaki Hattori, and they do that safely.
In turns 3 and 4. Meanwhile, of course, Juan Montoya is checking out. His lead now is up over 7.5 seconds. He is absolutely flying away from the field. Just 5 laps ago, the lead was 3.5 seconds. So in the last 4 laps, he's pulled away at 1 second a lap. And here we are. Look at the speed differential there, 150.91 last time around for Juan Montoya. And he is flying away from the field. A great drive once again by this Colombian. Ooh, he gets on the brakes there. A slower car. Robbie Gordon, he closed up so fast, didn't he, Ben?
He did, very quickly indeed, but he managed to keep it all together, and now he's got to try and get past him. You see, Toyota power seems to work pretty well in a straight line there, but on the brakes, Gordon lets him go through, and we're getting into the area of the second round of pit stops coming up fairly soon. So perhaps Montoya putting in a series of quick laps on purpose here if he can, getting through the traffic as quickly as possible, trying to open the advantage so that his pit crew are not put under quite so much pressure when he comes into the pit lane, which should be fairly soon. Lost a little bit of time on that last lap getting past the slower cars, but he still has a 6.8 second advantage over Franchitti, and Franchitti still doing his best to hold Vassar behind him before that last round of pit stops. Papis, meanwhile, still close in behind Vassar, and not getting the sound of Vassar's engine there at the moment, but just let me tell you that as you watch on board with Vassar, Max Papis was about 2 or 3 car lengths behind him as they went past our commentary position. Looking down pit lane, can't see any crews ready as yet, but they are all helmeted up, beginning to get ready. Nobody over the pit wall as yet, so a couple more laps perhaps before we see the final round of pit stops here. 70 laps remain on this 1 mile Chicago Motor Speedway, and there the battle between Vassar and Papis as they come up to lap again Richie Hearn.
No problems there for Juan Montoya, and next in his sights, well, was that Jimmy Vassar, sorry, wasn't it? I beg your pardon. And Richie Hearn really struggling coming off the corner as Tony Kanaan goes past him as well. Richie Hearn is now 3 laps down on the leaders, and clearly offering no real challenge this afternoon. But there is Juan Montoya. He's up against the close against the wall there, absolutely flying.
Max Papis still very much in the hunt though here today. 4th position for him as they start to get into the latter part of the race, and it's really about keeping up with the leaders, somewhere near the leaders at this stage. Of course, likelihood is we might see 1 or 2 more yellows before the end of the race, and they're staying up, but now it looks as though we're getting the pit stops. Max Papis dives into the pit lane as he heads up towards turn 3, and he's just got to hope that there isn't a yellow now, because he is the first of the leaders to make their last pit stop in this race with some 67 laps to go. Now, remember, the last pit stop from Team Rahal for Max wasn't that good. Slower by a couple of seconds than Andretti and Montoya. Let's see if they can do a slightly better job this time. They've been the fastest generally this year. Let's watch them at work. 4 tyres off, a whole new set of boots on the car. The methanol seems to be going in okay. The airline lets the jacks off. Oh, there's a problem on the refueling. It seemed to come out too early on the vent hose. Had to put the vent hose back in, but in fact, getting away pretty cleanly.
Yeah, 13.6, so that's a good 1.5 seconds or more slower than he really would have wanted there. So more time lost in the pits, and that is unusual by the Miller Lite crew.
Now, Michael Andretti has come out of the medical centre now. Let's go down and hear from him in pit lane.
Yeah, he's just been released from the medical center back at the transporter. Michael, tell us about this incident with Paul Tracy. I know you're not happy.
Unbelievable. Normal Paul Tracy driving. I mean, he's going to kill somebody out there. It's just such a shame. I mean, we both had a good race going, and he puts me down. I had nowhere to go, and I can't believe what he did. I mean, why? What is he thinking? I don't understand. I mean, does he have a death wish? Is he trying to kill us both? I don't know.
In a situation like this, how do you play it? When do you talk to Paul Tracy about this?
It's like talking to the wall. So you might, you know, the only one to talk to, I guess, is Wally to make a call, and I hope Wally makes a proper call on this, because that was so blatant. He did the same. He did it all the way down the straightaway. He was swerving at me, and then we got to the corner. I had nowhere to go. He put me in a totally winless situation, and we took both of us out for no reason.
All right, thank you.
A very upset Michael Andretti there, and well, I wonder if Wally Dallenbach will be called to decide upon that. We'll have to wait and see. Herta into the pits now as well, as is Scott Pruitt, and behind them Maurizio Gugelmin. So we're still awaiting Montoya, still waiting for Franchitti, still waiting for Vassar. None of them have made their stops yet, but we did see Papis, of course, come in a few laps ago, and we also saw during that interview Helio Castroneves in. So we are seeing quite a lot of the front runners into the pits, but we have not yet seen Montoya, Franchitti, or Vassar. But one of them is in now. Let's see, one of the target cars. It is Vassar. Jimmy Vassar coming into the pits. You're watching on board Juan Montoya, but his teammate, who was running in third place, is now heading down the pit lane, and Montoya, I think, will be coming in this time. Yes, he is. Juan Montoya, as you see, both target cars will be in at the same time, and both crews are ready. Now, there's Vassar. The brake dust coming off the hubs gives you some indication of just how hard the brakes are working at this track. And we wait. Remember, it's they're steel brakes in IndyCar, so you don't see quite as much dust as coming off a Formula One car.
There you go.
Now
watch that hose. There you go. Slow down. Slow down.
Listen up to the radio. Dario Franchitti is also heading into the pits now.
Tires are on. Ready?
Looks like a good stop for Montoya.
Go, go, go.
Fuel is in, and away he goes. 11.7 seconds.
Excellent stop by Target Chip Ganassi Racing and Rob Hill and the crew there. Another exemplary stop, and now Team Cool Green. That is Kyle Moyer and the crew will go to work on the car number 27. There they are, ready for service for Dario Franchitti.
In he comes then, ready for his tyre change and refueling. The pressure is on, but these guys do it every day. Back at the factory, there's a front wing change as well. Now that's interesting. We didn't see any changes on Montoya's car. Out comes Dario across the line, and there goes Montoya as they race side by side, one on the inside, one on the outside. Montoya is ahead of Franchitti as they come back out onto the track, and Montoya leads this race. Franchitti runs second. Again, it's the top two in the championship who will decide the outcome of today's race. 1 point separates them in the series, but who is going to get the edge here today? Look in the background, where is Vassar? Looks as though he lost a bit of time as a result of that pit stop. There he goes across the line now, and Vassar some 8 seconds behind Montoya.
That's right, and really, he is in the catbird seat now. Is Juan Montoya looking for his 6th win of the season, and absolutely flawless once again this afternoon. He showed patience and he showed pace.
But will that front wing change that Franchitti made make the difference? We'll have to wait and see. 167 laps completed. Further back, Scott Pruitt also having a good afternoon, up to 10th position. In fact, he's dropped a bit from where he was, because earlier he was running in 8th place.
That's right, he was. He's actually been passed there by Brian Herta. That is Herta directly in front of him, and as we talk about it, kaboom goes the Toyota engine, and Pruitt there pulls off very, very quickly down into pit lane, and we'll see whether the yellow flag, no sign yet that the yellow flag is going to come out. Jim Swintel has the yellow flag in his hand, but I think that Pruitt was able to get offline very, very quickly there. Very good job by Scott Pruitt, and pulls the car down into the pits.
So end of the afternoon for Scott Pruitt, and that is a pity. As we say, he had run a good race here this afternoon. He was the top Toyota runner in the top 10 at that point, and now that's put him out of action. He clambers out of the car, and it's the end of the day for the man starting his 140th career Champ Car race this afternoon. Montoya's lead 3.2 seconds, and that stays fairly consistent between himself and Dario Franchitti. Looking now at Brian Herter, who has got a 9th position now, seeing that car blow up in front of him. But Brian, with the Ford engine, finishing not too well on the recent races. He's had a little bit of a tough time, it has to be said. Had a 7th place finish at Michigan a few weeks ago, was 9th in Detroit, qualified 2nd at Mid-Ohio, but suffered an engine failure there, and that really put him out of any chance of success on that occasion. Meanwhile, we're looking at his teammate Max Papis. He runs in 4th place, started on pole position today, and still keeping Jimmy Vasser fairly honest.
Absolutely, he's actually close in on Jimmy Vasser there, and indeed he's actually left Helio Castroneves behind him by about a couple of seconds. So the last few laps, Castroneves was on the tail of Max Papis. Papis now has stepped on it and is really putting now the car of Jimmy Vasser in 3rd place under pressure. Can Papis? He was on the pole, but it's the victory he wants. He came oh so close just a few weeks ago at Michigan Speedway, absolutely robbed there at the last when he ran out of fuel, less than a mile from the finish line, and he's now in 4th place and he wants 3rd.
Now Scott Pruitt has clambered out of his car, as we saw. Let's go down and hear from him.
Finish that looked like it was going to be in the bag, all of a sudden went up in smoke. Give you any warning?
No, it just went all of a sudden. You know, it's tough for the Pioneer guys. You know, everybody worked real hard all day long, and things were really coming our way. You know, we really had a good car. We worked hard on it. And unfortunately, something happened in the engine, so an unfortunate day, but we'll be back in a couple weeks to Vancouver.
All right, we'll see you then.
Meanwhile, Jimmy Vasser has got himself a little caught up behind Robbie Gordon. And look at the 2 leaders. Look at Montoya and Franchitti, so much closer.
Absolutely, that is why Tony Kanaan, the PJ Jones and Roberto Moreno, and PJ Jones and Moreno, they are battling for 7th and 8th positions. They are the last cars on the lead lap. There goes Montoya, and right behind him now, here's Dario Franchitti as Moreno tries to make a move on PJ Jones.
Yeah, so they're so busy thinking about their own battle, they're not going to think too much about the leaders coming up behind them. You saw Montoya just wiggle a little bit coming out of turn 4 a second ago. The car looking a little bit loose, but Montoya catching it, holding it, and look at that, looking back at Franchitti. You really get a great perspective at this point in the race, how much these cars are sliding around. It might look like they're on rails, but just now and then you can just see the cars snake through the corners, and that's because the drivers are absolutely on the limit and driving every lap that way.
And actually Roberto Moreno has just pulled onto pit lane ahead of this battle here. He was out of sequence. He came in late under that recent yellow after, well, relatively recent yellow after Michael Andretti's crash, so he was able to go longer than the other guys on that fuel. He now comes in for his final stop, so he will lose a lap there. But meanwhile, Dario Franchitti is still placing the race leader under pressure, and they now will try to get past the car of PJ Jones.
So how can Franchitti try and close this gap again? We've seen him get past Montoya once this afternoon. We saw Montoya get back past him, and now he's got to do it all over again. Into the pits, meanwhile, there's Cristiano De Mata. Guterman also in trouble, I think. Guterman, I think he pulled off down at the end of the start-finish straight, so Guterman there looks as though he's out of the race. It's another retirement, and this race suddenly is turning into one of attrition, isn't it? We're seeing cars pulling off all over the place. Montoya's just been held up a bit by PJ Jones, let me tell you, coming out of turn number 4, and as they go down the front stretch, Montoya still trying to find a way past PJ Jones and still can't do it. And Franchitti's got a run on Montoya. Franchitti, let me tell you, you can't see it on screen, but there, how close they are. Franchitti had a run on Montoya there because they got held up by PJ Jones, and now Franchitti tucked in behind the target car once again. This is great racing between the 2 championship leaders.
Absolutely superb stuff there, PJ Jones. He defended his line there into turn 1. That's okay. He made one move down to the middle of the track to defend his position from Juan Montoya. And as I say, oval track racing, very, very different to road course racing in terms of etiquette. That is the accepted line. If you can stay on the lead lap, that's fine, as long as you don't start blocking. And by blocking, I mean making not just one move, but then another one. If you've moved to the inside to defend your position, that's fine. If the guy can drive around the outside of you, okay. But if the guy then tries to go to the outside and you move across again to try and make another blocking move, that is a no-no. And as long as Jones doesn't do that, then he is okay from the chief steward. But certainly, Juan Montoya once past PJ Jones, and you can bet that team owner Chip Ganassi is on the radio to Wally Dallenbach, telling him to go to the blue flag. The blue flag is being shown, but PJ Jones is under no obligation to move out of the way. So he can race effectively for position. Great stuff here.
Well, for Dario Franchitti, he will probably see this as a little bit of poetic justice. He felt that he lost a lot of time behind PJ Jones at Mid-Ohio last week, and he felt that really was what gave Montoya the opportunity to close up and pass. Well, now it's sort of the other way around, because Montoya's stuck behind PJ Jones, and it's given Franchitti a chance to close up. Now PJ trying to go past Tony Kanaan, that goes safely enough. And meanwhile, this is Jimmy Vasser with Max Papis right behind him. Papis very, very close as the leaders come across the line. We're also trying to watch two battles at once here from our commentary spot. We get a great view of the whole track, the whole 1 mile oval laid out below us. There you're watching Vasser versus Papis, and out front it's still Montoya versus Franchitti. And still they haven't got past PJ Jones, and in fact they've lost a bit of ground to PJ, having taken a while to get past Tony Kanaan. Well, this is fascinating stuff. There are 29 laps still to go here, and everybody on the edge of their seats in the grandstands. In fact, most of them all standing up, certainly in the lower part of the grandstand, because this is a great tussle, and nobody quite knows how this one's going to work out. Montoya seems to have the advantage on a clear track, but the traffic is playing its part here. Again, they're closing up to PJ Jones. PJ Jones checking his mirror. They're not that close at this point. PJ doesn't really need to worry about them yet, but they will close up again over the course of the next lap or two. And PJ certainly defending his approach to letting leaders through, even though he's upset some of the other drivers, particularly on the road courses. But this is another opportunity here for Franchitti if they get behind them. Well, PJ going fairly quickly, as you can see, getting past Shigeaki Hattori and putting another lap on him safely, and Montoya now trying to do the same.
And there is it's another lapped car in between, as you say, that is Shigeaki Hattori. They come off the start-finish line, and Franchitti held up a little bit there. He's got about a second or so now to make up to Juan Montoya. That is the race leader, and PJ Jones still a pretty comfortable distance in front of him. He is not holding up the race leader.
Just behind, you can see some of the other battles going on. Juan Montoya is race leader, just 26 laps to go here at the Chicago Motor Speedway. This is the lead battle, Juan Montoya, and you're looking back at Dario Franchitti as they work their way through traffic. And once again, they're coming up behind PJ Jones. They got close behind him a moment ago, and then they couldn't do anything because they got into other traffic, had to get past Vitolo, and that dropped them away again. And it's allowed the two leaders to close right up together. We have 20 laps to go, and the battle still very much on between Montoya and Franchitti.
And of course, don't forget, not just the battle for the lead of this race, but the battle for the championship as well. If they stay where they are now, Montoya will regain the championship lead. Just 1 point separating them coming in, and there's a lot to fight for this afternoon.
There is. It's all about the rest of the season. There are 5 more races after this one, so we really are counting down a bit. It's a long championship, 20-race season, but they do really begin to count down now. And remember that there's 4 points difference between finishing first and second. Meanwhile, look at this. Franchitti's almost being passed by Roberto Moreno, who's trying to unlap himself. Moreno's absolutely flying.
He certainly is a couple of laps down, actually, but trying to get one of those laps back. And trying very, very hard to get one of those laps back. And wow, look at that. He was so close a couple of times ago, a couple of corners ago, and he's trying to make that move now.
Yes, he is. And of course, he's justified in doing this. He is trying to chase after Brian Herter, who is someone somewhat further up the road to gain what would be 8th position. So Moreno's within his rights to do this. Of course, it's not exactly what Franchitti needs, because it may mean that the gap between himself and Montoya increases again. So Franchitti, I think, will do everything he can to stay ahead of the black Newman-Haas Swift, the car Moreno is subbing for Christian Fittipaldi.
Well, I don't know. Moreno has got a very, very fast car indeed. You know, I think he's obviously quicker than Franchitti because he's closed right up. I think Dario might be advised, best advice, to let Moreno go, and maybe Moreno can make a move on the race leader, slow him up, and then maybe Dario can take advantage of that. But it's awfully tough to ask a guy in second place to give up any sort of track position to a guy who is a couple of laps behind him.
Yes, it is tough. You're right there. And of course, then all he would need is for Moreno to make a mistake or something and it would all go wrong. Looking at the fastest laps, though, look at that. Moreno has the 5 fastest laps in this race.
And look when he did it. Lap 192, 3, 4, 5 and 6 there, in not necessarily in that sequence of order, but he's the last few laps absolutely flying.
14 laps, 14 laps.
Dario Franchitti being given the message. 14 laps to go. Now then, that's just 14 miles, of course, on this track. That's not long for him to be able to hunt down Montoya. But Montoya is again getting a little stuck behind PJ Jones. Jones runs in 7th position overall. It's not as if he's off the pace. He is running quickly. He wants to stay on the lead lap. And Jones in 7th, one of his best results of the season, if he can stay there. Gear change on Montoya there. Sounded as though the gear change wasn't quite as perfect as normal, but he didn't lose any time through it. Had a problem with 4th gear earlier in the race, remember. Clean up at the top end of the track. The view back, again, you can see Franchitti's car just moving a little bit. Sliding on the limit the whole time through those long, tight corners at either end of this racetrack. Down over the white line, but not too far down. Franchitti takes a slightly wider line on exit than Juan Montoya. Just depends on where the car works best. And again there, close behind PJ Jones.
Yeah, these cars very, very evenly matched. I have no doubt that Montoya is a little bit quicker than PJ Jones, but PJ Jones has excellent straight line speed. And even though Montoya can get off the corners just a little bit better, PJ can not only carry that speed into the corner pretty well there on the brakes, but he gets off the corner well also. And then particularly on the straight, he perhaps leaves that Honda engine car of Juan Montoya by just a car length or so. There's not much in it, but certainly the Ford Cosworth has excellent horsepower, and that is proving in the favour of PJ Jones and his battle to stay on the lead lap. Meanwhile, there is Moreno trying to make a move on Franchitti. Not for position, I stress. He is 2 laps down, but he wants to make up a couple of those laps, maybe make up some more positions if there is a yellow in the closing stages.
We're into the last 10-lap sprint now. It really is counting down to the end of this race, the first race at the Chicago Motor Speedway, and it looks as though Juan Montoya can hold on for victory here, but the pressure from Dario Franchitti is relentless as we are into the last section of this race, the last sprint, and it could still go either way. PJ Jones still in front of these two. Remember that Jimmy Vasser runs in 3rd place, Max Papis is still 4th, Helio Castroneves in 5th position, then Patrick Carpentier making his return to the series, driving great this afternoon, and he's in 6th place as Moreno has another little look down the inside of Franchitti, and Franchitti has to let him through this time. He has no choice. Moreno, with the faster car, goes ahead of Franchitti, but remember, that's not for position. That's just Moreno trying to unlap himself, but it does mean that he now lies between the 2 leaders.
That was close, wasn't it? And Franchitti didn't want to let him go, but you know, who knows, it might turn out to be in his favour to have done that. Now, can Moreno make a move on Juan Montoya? And if he does, will he slow up Montoya?
Okay,
and will that give the opportunity for Dario Franchitti to make a pass as well as Barry Green there on the radio to Franchitti? He is still P2, and Barry Green said that is not a battle for position. Don't worry about that. Just keep your eyes focused on this car, the car we're on board with, the Target Ted Ganassi racing car of Juan Montoya.
Just 6 laps to go now, and Moreno in behind Juan Montoya, not for position, just trying to unlap himself, but really just, it's a wild card in the pack there that we're wondering, how is this going to come out? For the moment, it's working to Montoya's advantage, because the gap between Montoya and Franchitti, 1st and 2nd, has definitely opened up, and as they come out of the last turn, and you're looking there at Jimmy Vasser and Max Papis, that's the distance between those two. Very similar battles, really, for the lead and for 3rd place. It's Vasser 3rd, Papis fourth, two good friends, and look how close they are with Helio Castroneves right in behind them as well. Max was saying after the press conference yesterday that Jimmy has helped him a lot in his years here in America, particularly on the ovals, and he says, you know, Jimmy's been a bit of a coach to me. He says sometimes the young kid comes along and beats the coach. That's what he's trying to do here this afternoon, and it's pretty close between these two.
Great stuff here. This is really exciting. Building down to the final stages now. Just 4 laps to go. It'll be 3 when they come past next time around as they go into the across the start-finish line one more time. So, oh, it's close here. There's not much. That is a battle for third position there with Jimmy Vasser still maintaining position ahead of Papis, and there, right behind him, is Helio Castroneves.
Papis looking for that slight opportunity. He's got Ford horsepower. Remember, 3 different engine units in the battle here. Honda in the back of Vasser's car, Ford in the back of Papis' car, Mercedes in the back of Helio Castroneves' car, and it's the Ford horsepower of Max Papis that might just give him the edge on the long straights here. But look, there's the lead battle, and Montoya still ahead of Moreno, but it's Franchitti who runs in second place. Lots of traffic to deal with. Franchitti gets past Hattori okay, safely. Hattori runs wide, and there's just 2 laps to go, less than 2 laps to go as they head along the back stretch. Montoya's looking good here today. There will be the white flag awaiting him as he comes out of turn 4 on this occasion. Is he going to take a record-breaking 6th win for a rookie in his first season? Juan Montoya is breaking all the records, and it looks as though he's going to break another record here today. He's going to win at his team owner's own racetrack, Chip Ganassi's racetrack here in Chicago, the brand new facility, and it's Chip Ganassi's driver who is going to win here this afternoon. He's withstood all the pressure. He started 10th, but Juan Montoya takes the applause from the grandstand. Montoya wins it.
You are the man, baby.
And Chip Ganassi.
Oh, thanks, guys. Beautiful pistol. Beautiful everything.
And there you really hear the delight in Montoya's voice. He worked for that one, and he really appreciates it. Vasser takes 3rd from Max Papis. Great battle between those two throughout this race. And Team Rahal pretty happy there. I think Bobby pleased with what his man did today. A 4th place finish. But Montoya, the winner, once again, win number 6 in the book, and that means he takes the championship lead back from Dario Franchitti. Jimmy Vasser finishing 3rd, Max Papis 4th, Helio Castroneves, a good 5th place finish for him today. Patrick Carpentier, full marks to him for 6th place.